Let's be real, your life today is nothing more than the sum of your habits. The food you eat, the money in your bank account, the energy you bring to your relationships, they're all direct deposits from the habits you've been running every single day. So if you want a different life, you don't need a miracle. You need different habits. And that's exactly what James Clear's Atomic Habits is all about. Here's the truth: most people don't fail because their goals are too big. They fail because their systems are broken. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. If you keep trying to motivate your way through life without building better systems, you'll stay stuck. Period. Small habits compound into massive change, and this single idea is the heartbeat of James Clear's Atomic Habits. It sounds simple, almost too simple, but if you really take it seriously, it can flip the way you see progress, success, and even failure. Most of us believe transformation comes from big breakthroughs, the perfect diet plan, the huge promotion, the once in a lifetime opportunity. But reality doesn't work that way. Big moments may grab the headlines, but they are almost always the result of small, consistent actions that quietly stacked up in the background until they reached a tipping point. Think about money. If you invest a few dollars every day, it doesn't seem like much. You barely notice the difference in your bank account at first. But compound interest is relentless. The gains build on top of each other, and over time, the growth becomes exponential. Habits work the same way. One workout won't transform your body, but dozens, then hundreds will. Eating a single salad won't make you healthy, but repeating that choice consistently shifts your health trajectory. It's the compounding of small wins repeated relentlessly that produces what looks like an overnight success. Here's the challenge: because small habits feel insignificant in the moment, people dismiss them. Skipping one workout doesn't seem like a big deal. Eating one donut doesn't seem catastrophic. But the reverse compound effect is just as powerful as the positive one. Every time you reinforce a small negative habit, you're investing in a different future, one where your health, energy, and confidence slowly erode. Change doesn't come from a single decision, it comes from the direction your repeated decisions take you. Another way to see this is by looking at the 1% rule. Imagine getting just 1% better every single day. That seems like nothing, almost laughable. But mathematically, 1% better compounded daily turns into being 37 times better in a year. On the flip side, 1% worse every day compounds into near zero. That's how powerful small habits are. They quietly, invisibly set the trajectory of your life. The real magic of compounding is that it's not linear, it's exponential. In the early stages, you won't see much. This is where most people quit. You go to the gym for a week, and the scale doesn't move. You start reading every night, and your knowledge doesn't feel that different. It's frustrating because the results lag behind the effort. But habits are like planting seeds. For a long time, it looks like nothing is happening. Then suddenly, growth breaks through the surface. What people call overnight success is really the visible result of invisible work done consistently, compounded over time. This is why patience is critical. Small habits test your faith in the process. They don't give you the dopamine hit of a quick transformation. They demand consistency without immediate reward. But if you trust the math of compounding, you realize that every small action is an investment in your future self. The key is not asking, what result did I get today? But instead asking, what direction am I building into my identity? If you repeat something often enough, it becomes who you are. And once it's part of your identity, the compounding effect accelerates because you're no longer forcing the habit, you're living it. Think about someone who decides to run a mile every morning. At first, they're just running. But after a few weeks, they stop seeing themselves as someone who's trying to get in shape. They start seeing themselves as a runner. That identity shift makes the habit stick, and every run compounds not only in physical stamina, but also in self-belief. Over months and years, that simple mile changes their health, their mindset, and even their opportunities in life. The beauty of this principle is that it applies to every domain: health, relationships, career, finances, even mental well-being. A couple who takes 5 minutes each night to really listen to each other compounds trust and intimacy. An employee who spends 10 minutes each day learning something new compounds into expertise that others will one day call talent. A person who journals a few sentences every morning compounds clarity of thought that later looks like wisdom. The trap most people fall into is underestimating these small choices because the results aren't instant. Our culture glorifies big transformations, the before and after photos, the rags to riches stories. But the truth is far less glamorous and far more accessible. Greatness is the accumulation of ordinary actions executed consistently. When you truly grasp that small habits compound into massive change, you stop obsessing over quick wins and start respecting the power of consistency. You don't need to run a marathon tomorrow. You need to put on your shoes and run for 10 minutes. You don't need to read 50 books this year. You need to open a book tonight. You don't need to become a new person overnight. You need to take one step in the direction of the person you want to be. And here's the ultimate payoff. Once small habits become automatic, The compounding is effortless. Just like money earns interest while you sleep, good habits generate returns even when you're not thinking about them. That's when life begins to shift in ways that feel unstoppable. So the question isn't whether small habits matter. The question is, which small habits are you compounding right now? Because whether you realize it or not, they're already building the story of your future. Most people think motivation is the secret sauce to success. They wait for inspiration, for energy, for the perfect moment when they'll feel ready. But motivation is like the weather. It comes and goes, unpredictable, unreliable, and outside your control. If your life depends on being motivated every single day, you're setting yourself up for failure because no one feels like it all the time. That's where systems come in. A system is the set of processes, routines, and environments you design to carry you forward even when your motivation disappears. And it always will. Take dieting, for example. Motivation gets you started. You're fired up on day one, maybe even day two. You've sworn off sugar, stocked up on kale, and told your friends this time is different. Then Friday night comes, you're tired from work, you don't feel like cooking, and a pizza commercial hits the screen. Motivation vanishes. What happens? If you don't have a system, prepped meals, no junk food in the house, a clear plan for what to eat when you're tired, you give in. Motivation might get you to the starting line, but only a system gets you across the finish line. This isn't about discipline being some magical quality only a few people are born with. Discipline is what shows up when you've built systems that make the right choice easier than the wrong one. If you have to fight yourself every single day to make progress, you're doing it wrong. That's why James Clear stresses that systems are greater than goals. A goal is the outcome you want. A system is the process that leads you there. Think about sports. Every athlete wants to win a championship. That's the goal. But only the teams with the best systems, training routines, playbooks, recovery protocols, consistent practice actually succeed. The losers wanted to win too. Wanting it wasn't enough. Motivation wasn't enough. The difference was in the system. Systems matter because they make success automatic. If your system is to write for 10 minutes every morning right after you pour your coffee, then writing doesn't depend on whether you're inspired that day. If your system is to always pack your gym clothes the night before, then exercise doesn't depend on whether you feel like after work. Systems reduce friction. They take willpower out of the equation. You don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your systems. There's a trap people fall into when they chase motivation. They get stuck in cycles of guilt. They start strong, fall off when the feeling fades, beat themselves up for lacking discipline, then wait for another burst of motivation to try again. That's the roller coaster most people live on. A system breaks that cycle by creating consistency that doesn't depend on mood swings. One of the best ways to think about this is the environment principle. If you're trying to eat healthier, it's not about motivational speeches in your head when you're hungry. It's about structuring your environment so the healthy choice is the obvious one. Keep fruit on the counter. Keep junk food out of reach. Portion your meals ahead of time. That's a system. If you're trying to save money, automate transfers to a savings account. That's a system. If you're trying to grow as a leader, schedule recurring time blocks for reflection and feedback. That's a system. In each case, motivation is irrelevant. The system carries you. And here's the kicker. Systems don't just protect you from failure, they create momentum. Once a system is in place, it compounds. Showing up becomes second nature. You begin to trust yourself. You start to identify as someone who does the habit, not someone who tries to do it. That identity shift only happens because the system provides consistency. Without that consistency, motivation fizzles and identity never sticks. Motivation feels good in the moment, but it's unreliable. Systems are boring in the short term, but they're unbeatable in the long run. If you want to know what your future looks like, don't ask yourself how motivated you feel today. Look at the systems you have in place. If you have none, your future will look like more the same. If you've built strong systems, your future is secure, even if you don't feel like it right now. At the end of the day, the truth is simple. Motivation is an emotion. Systems are a strategy. Emotions fade, strategies endure. You don't need to wake up inspired. You need to wake up to a system that makes progress inevitable. That's the real edge. That's why systems beat motivation every single time. Most people try to change their lives by focusing on outcomes. They say things like, I want to lose 20 pounds, or I want to save $10, or I want to read 50 books this year. That's outcome-based thinking. It's not wrong, but it's not powerful enough to last. Because outcomes are about what you want to achieve, not about who you are becoming. The real transformation happens when you stop asking, what do I want to achieve? And start asking, who do I want to be? Identity drives behavior. When your habits are anchored to your sense of self, they stick. When they're just tied to an external goal, they fade the moment things get tough. Think about someone trying to quit smoking. There are two possible mindsets. One person says, I'm trying to quit. The other says, I don't smoke. Both of them might have gone the same amount of time without a cigarette, but the second person is pulling from identity. They're not fighting themselves every day. because they already see themselves as a non-smoker. Identity is the ultimate habit glue. When a habit matches who you believe you are, you don't have to push yourself to do it. You do it because that's who you are. This is why so many people fail with diets, workout plans, or productivity hacks. They're trying to graft a new behavior onto an old identity. If deep down you still believe, I'm lazy, then no matter how many times you set the alarm for 5 a.m., you'll sabotage yourself eventually. If you believe, I'm just bad with money, then even if you save a little, you'll find a way to spend it because your identity doesn't support the habit. Behavior that conflicts with identity doesn't last. That's why shifting identity is more important than chasing outcomes. Now, here's the tricky part. Identity isn't built overnight. You don't just wake up and declare, I'm disciplined, and suddenly become that person. Identity is built through proof. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. When you read one page, you cast a vote for being a reader. When you exercise for 5 minutes, you cast a vote for being an athlete. When you save $5, you cast a vote for being financially responsible. One vote doesn't define you, but the accumulation of votes builds the story of your identity. That's why small habits matter so much. They're not just tasks, they're evidence. If you want to change your life, stop chasing results and start asking, what would the person I want to be do in this situation? That question puts you in identity mode. Want to be healthier. Instead of saying, I need to lose 20 pounds, say, what does a healthy person do at lunch? A healthy person orders the grilled chicken instead of the fries. Want to be more productive. Instead of saying, I need to finish this project, say, what does a focused person do right now? A focused person puts their phone away and starts the first small task. By making decisions based on identity, you reinforce the story you want to live, not the story you're trying to escape. Here's another example. Let's say someone wants to become a writer. If their identity is, I want to write a book that's still outcome-based, they'll probably wait for inspiration, get stuck halfway, and struggle with consistency. But if their identity is, I am a writer, then writing is no longer about finishing a book. It's about showing up every day to do what writers do, write. The book becomes a byproduct of the identity, not the other way around. This is also why negative identities are so destructive. If you've labeled yourself as the anxious one, the unlucky one, or the messy one, your brain will look for ways to live up to that label. Behavior follows identity, even if the identity is hurting you. That's why the most powerful shift you can make is to rewrite the story you tell yourself. You can't always control the outcomes immediately, but you can choose the identity you're moving toward. The key is to start small. If you want to become a reader, read 1 page tonight. Don't worry about finishing a book yet. If you want to become fit, do 10 push-ups. Don't worry about running a marathon yet. If you want to be financially responsible, save $5. Don't worry about retiring yet. Every small action is a vote, and votes add up. Over time, you won't just be someone trying to do those things. You'll be someone who naturally lives them. At the end of the day, your habits are not just actions. They are expressions of your identity. You can't consistently behave in a way that contradicts how you see yourself. If you want to make lasting change, stop obsessing over the finish line and start building a new identity, one small vote at a time. When your habits and your identity are aligned, success isn't forced anymore. It's inevitable. Every habit you have, the good, the bad, and the ugly, runs on the same loop cue: craving, response, reward. This is the operating system of human behavior. If you don't understand it, you're at the mercy of your environment. If you do, you can rewire almost anything in your life. It's like learning the code behind a program. Once you see the pattern, you realize why you've been doing what you've been doing all along, and more importantly, how to change it. It starts with the cue. The cue is the trigger that tells your brain something's about to happen, pay attention. It can be obvious, like an alarm clock going off, or subtle, like walking into a kitchen and smelling coffee. Cues are everywhere. The sound of a notification ding is a cue to check your phone. Seeing your running shoes by the door can be a cue to exercise. The real problem is that most people don't realize how many cues they're surrounded by. They're being nudged all day long without even noticing. Then comes the craving. The craving is the desire created by the cue. It's not the action itself, it's the emotional pull. When you smell coffee, the craving isn't for the liquid in the cup, it's for the energy boost, the comfort, the ritual. When you hear the buzz of your phone, the craving isn't for holding a rectangle of glass, it's for connection, information, or distraction. Cravings are the emotional fuel that drive your habits. Without craving, a cue is meaningless. The third stage is the response. This is the action you actually take, the behavior that follows the craving. If the craving is strong enough, you respond. If it's weak, you might ignore it. That's why the strength of the craving determines whether or not the habit sticks. If the craving for comfort after a stressful day is strong, your response might be reaching for a beer or grabbing junk food. If the craving for accomplishment is strong, your response might be staying late to finish the project. Finally, there's the reward. The reward is the payoff, the satisfaction, the closing of the loop. Every habit has to end in a reward, otherwise your brain won't log it as worth repeating. The reward reinforces the cue, making it more likely you'll respond the same way next time. Eat a donut, feel a sugar rush, brain says. Remember this for later. Work out, feel the endorphins, brain says. That felt good, let's do it again. The loop closes and the cycle repeats. Now here's the power. If you want to build a habit, you have to make the loop work for you. That means making cues obvious, cravings attractive, responses easy, and rewards satisfying. This is why leaving your running shoes out works. It's a visual cue. Pairing your workout with music you love makes it attractive. Starting with a short workout makes it easy. Tracking your progress or rewarding yourself with a post-workout smoothie makes it satisfying. That's the full loop in action. On the flip side, if you want to break a bad habit, you reverse engineer the loop. Make the cue invisible, the craving unattractive, the response difficult, and the reward unsatisfying. If scrolling social media is killing your focus, put your phone in another room. That kills the cue. If smoking feels attractive because it's tied to relaxation, reframe it by focusing on how it drains your health and energy. That makes the craving less appealing. If junk food is too easy to grab, stop buying it. No cue, no craving, no response. And if the reward isn't satisfying anymore, like feeling sluggish after binge watching, your brain starts to reject the cycle. The key here is that habits are not about willpower. They're about loops. If you're fighting yourself every day, you're not failing because you're weak. You're failing because your loop is rigged against you. You've got cues all over your environment pulling you toward behaviors you don't even want. You've got cravings wired to the wrong rewards. The moment you change the loop, the behavior changes almost effortlessly. Think about this. Brushing your teeth is a habit you don't even think about anymore. Why? The cue is obvious. Morning breath. The craving is clear. You want freshness. The response is easy. 2 minutes of brushing. The reward is instant. A clean mouth. That loop is so strong you'd feel off if you didn't complete it. That's how powerful this framework is. You can design loops like that for any behavior you want to lock in. The most important thing to realize is that habits don't care whether they're good or bad. The loop doesn't judge. It just runs. Your job is to step back and ask, what loops am I running unconsciously? Which ones are moving me forward and which ones are holding me back? Once you answer that, you can start engineering your loops instead of being enslaved by them. At the end of the day, cue, craving, response, reward, that's the formula for every pattern in your life. If you want control, don't chase motivation, don't wait for inspiration, don't rely on willpower, master the loop. Because once you do, you're not just changing a habit, you're changing the code of your behavior, and that means you can reprogram your future.